Please take your seats quickly, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Tennis Weekly with Joel, Kim and Chris. On today's Australian Open Round 2 catch-up, sponsored by DownloadTennis.com.
Murray pulls off a morning miracle.
Nadal succumbs to Mackenzie McDonald an injury.
And number 2 seeds Jabeur and Ruud are sent packing.
Kim, Chris, today is the 19th of January and we are here to catch up on round 2 of the Australian Open at Tennis Weekly HQ. It is 7:24 local time in the evening in the UK, and remarkably, we have only just had a couple of hours to breathe, really, after a really, really long day of tennis that finished, post 4 a.m. local time in Melbourne, thanks to Andy Murray and Thanasi Kokkinakis. And before we just get into that, I mean, I've just got to ask the question, how were your productivity levels today?
I was quite distracted, I have to say, and I realised after the match ended, I had breakfast to Andy Murray, I had lunch to Andy Murray, and I managed to catch his match point after my last work meeting of the day. So he very much formed a big part of my work day today. What about you, Chris?
Well, I couldn't watch that much of it, but I'm an hour ahead here in Copenhagen. So he finished about 7:30 p.m. And I know that we say this before, that he almost always is playing whilst we're recording. And I thought maybe he still will be on as we were recording and we'd have to bring the result to you live. So I'm just pleased we have a result, and it's a result we were hoping for.
I mean, it did at times. I've wondered whether it was going to hit the all-time Australian Open record, which I think is Leighton Hewitt and Marcos Baghdatis at 4:34 a.m. I mean, we were very, very close to that. And I mean, absolutely fair play to all of the fans that stayed for that. And I think, I mean, they were treated, weren't they, to an absolutely epic encounter that, as much as the controversy, which we're going to get into about late night finishes, which inevitably have come up as a result of a post 4 a.m. finish. I mean, let's talk about the performances first of all, because it was just an unbelievable match, wasn't it?
Yeah, I thought Murray was, not down and out, but it just seemed so unlikely, when Kokkinakis was serving for the match, that
I thought he was down and out.
Yeah, exactly. It seemed so unlikely that Murray would come back, especially as he'd just come through 5 hours, against Berrettini and kind of scraped through that one, having to save the match point. So, I don't know. It's just absolutely amazing. I mean, I've got no expectations for him in the next round after this and these two matches. But, yeah. Am I allowed to say bloody hell? That's all I can kind of say, really.
It's incredible. I think when I saw the scoreline, I thought this is the classic case where when Murray's able to put together a fantastic win, he loses to someone who's of a lower caliber in the next round. So I thought it's all of that effort in the last round not to get through. But I mean, the way that he said he's got a big heart, he just doesn't know when he's beaten. And I think it just shows that no matter what the score is in a tennis match, it can flip on its head if you believe that you can still do it and you keep your head up. I mean, to have that much belief with a metal hip to go 2 5-set matches, I mean, how many hours he spent on court? We're looking at potentially a record. Carlos Alcaraz at the US Open was on court for an awful lot of hours, but I feel like Murray might have done enough hours to win the title already.
Compared to probably what Ash Barty spent on court last year to win the title, I reckon he's already exceeded that, to be honest.
He might have.
Which is just, unbelievable.
It's interesting you talk about how big his heart is, and the belief that he has, given the experience he's had over the years. He's had countless times found himself in these really difficult situations, back to the wall situations, those situations that Andy Murray as a competitor thrives in. And it's just fascinating to me to see someone on the other side of the net like Kokkinakis, who was playing great tennis first 3 hours of the match, first couple of sets. I was really, really impressed with his level. He was serving big, he was confident, he was aggressive. But the closer it got to a potential, him thinking, I might actually win this, he really did go into his shell a bit and he became more passive. And for me, that is what's so fascinating about these encounters, is that some of these players, they might be playing great tennis, but to get over the line is almost a challenge in itself. And Kokkinakis, when he found themselves in those moments, unfortunately, he was found wanting, and that is when Andy Murray is ready to is ready to pounce, and at his best is when there's that little bit of doubt and that little bit of uncertainty that I certainly think Kokkinakis found himself, in particular at the deep end of that third set.
Do you think it depends on when people come into kind of the peak success of their career as to how they're able to handle the pressure? Because we've seen that people can come through like Emma Raducanu or Carlos Alcaraz when they're very young and get a result when there's no expectation. But when you're Kokkinakis and you've had so many injury setbacks, I think we all thought last year he'd push forward more. In these moments, these are sometimes few and far between and of much more significance as you're kind of in your mid to late sort of 20s. And it feels like Murray's very much appreciates every single moment that he has on court, and he's already achieved so much. But for someone like Kokkinakis, it still is a what could they achieve and how amazing he can play, but it's not necessarily ever kind of come to fruition in terms of that big result. So it might be harder for them.
I did think, it's unfortunate, and, the way that Kokkinakis was playing actually made me almost a little bit sad that, he's been robbed, I feel, of so much time on the tour and on the court, in his, earlier on in his career. But I did wonder whether, because of those injuries, because of that lack of, those experiences and those moments, on the tour that you just inevitably build up, once you make it in terms of your ranking, I did wonder whether having the lack of those moments was going to count against him, against someone like an Andy Murray who's been in Grand Slam finals. He's played the very best. He knows how much you have to dig deep, and I wondered if that did kind of count against him. I mean, he did play a fantastic match. I mean, he ended up hitting 102 winners, and it was impressive. I think he didn't necessarily just kind of fade away. I think in that fifth set, he really did kind of fight to the end, but Andy Murray just wanted it that little bit more.
Yeah, I mean, Andy has a great record coming from 2 sets down, which they referenced, in his post-match interview. But I mean, I said to you guys, we're going to have to use Andy as our picture for when we put this episode out, and we don't normally use the same.
I know, we're having to break all the rules, aren't we?
What, Marketa Vondrousova after that upset? No, do you think this Murray match is slightly more impressive?
We may sound biased, but I genuinely feel Andy Murray has provided the most entertainment so far this tournament.
He deserves it all.
And long may it continue. Joel, he is up against Roberto Bautista Agut in the next round, who you have predicted, I think, to make the quarters. So are you confident RBA is going to get that one?
Well, he came through 5 sets from 2 sets down as well. So I think, both of them, I think, are going to be feeling it a bit. I mean, they're still both tremendous athletes. Again, it's incredible, I think, to see Andy Murray get to the third round, given the number of hours he's put on the court. This was the longest ever match of his career. But yeah, against RBA, it's going to be a tough one. I think it's just fascinating because I remember those years ago when Murray people thought he was going to retire, and we had that really cringe retirement video in Melbourne. That was after a 5-set loss to Roberto Bautista Agut. So there's a little bit of parallels and I think context there that I think is quite funny. That who knows, maybe it'll be brought up in the post match afterwards. But I think that's going to be a very, very tough match. But both of them and all the players really in this quarter are going to be thinking, hey, this is a big opportunity for me to go deep in the tournament. And to think, when we saw the draw at the beginning and we saw Andy Murray, Matteo Berrettini, and a lot of us were thinking, oh, that's an awful draw. Yeah, I can't see him getting past that. Well, it certainly, changed a lot, I think, over the course of the first week or so in Melbourne, given how the other results have fallen.
Yeah, because we had the second seed Casper Ruud, 2-time Grand Slam finalist from last year, out in 4 sets to Jenson Brooksby, who has never played at this event before. Ruud was able to take it into a 4th set. He saved a couple of match points in the 3rd set, but he just wasn't able to overcome Jenson Brooksby. Chris, what did you make of Casper Ruud, going down? I think this is with Rafa also losing, which we'll get onto in a bit. This is, I think, the first time in basically forever that the top 2 male seeds are just out so early in the tournament.
I mean, I hadn't really thought about it like that in terms of the top 2 ranked players, because obviously we had this debate at the end of last season as to who really was the world number 1, whether it was Carlos Alcaraz or whether it was Novak Djokovic, and neither of those players are kind of the 2 players who you've just mentioned, obviously. So I hadn't necessarily clocked that had happened at this tournament, because I'm not sure that many of us, despite kind of Casper's 2 finals, do see him as more of a number 2 than, say, Djokovic would be. So it doesn't feel like it's as big a loss to the tournament in that sense. And I think it's, Casper's had some difficult results at times. He hasn't really put them together, but he has always put great results at the majors recently. So it's a surprise. I think they said that their balls are obviously playing very slowly, and that's not really going to help Casper get the ball through the court, and someone like Brooksby is very, very unconventional. So I think it's a tricky matchup. I think you wouldn't want to play him in the second round. I do think it sounds like he didn't take his chances. I didn't catch that much of the match, but there were 25 breakpoint chances, and there were more chances for Brooksby, but only 13 to 12. So it sounds like it could have probably gone either way, but I guess after that effort,
at winning the points that matter, isn't it?
It is.
So,
after that effort of the third set, maybe it was hard to keep that sort of level up and maintain that. But all credit to Brooksby, because when you do have match points, it's very hard to refocus and get the job done. But it's a shame for Casper.
I still wonder, I've brought this up, I feel like time and again, but does Casper Ruud lack that edge when it comes to Grand Slams? I think we always talk about him, as a nice chap, great sportsmanship on the court, a real role model. But there are times I feel, particularly I think when I was watching this match anyway, I just felt, he just almost was like, I don't know, resigned to defeat. He's like, oh, Jenson Brooksby's playing well. I'm not sure what I can do about this. And yeah, there was a little bit of, fight back in the, in the fourth set, but sorry, in the third set. But I just wonder if Ruud has that ruthlessness that I think you need when you are in these early rounds. And, he's obviously got to, 2 Grand Slam finals last year, but I feel like waiting to, I'd like to talk about him as like this sort of smiling assassin. I feel like he's just like smiling and is really, really nice. And I feel like he needs to develop that edge that really can kind of just put away these really kind of tricky players like Brooksby, who are unconventional and, are an odd kind of proposition when he comes onto the court. Because the other thing I felt with this match was he was a little bit tentative kind of going forward. And I don't think Ruud's net play is necessarily where it needs to be, and Brooksby really was focusing on that backhand side of Ruud, and it was paying dividends. And when you have an unconventional game like that, and it's about kind of your tactics and your strategy, Brooksby certainly, I think, delivered on that front, and he put Ruud in some very awkward spots.
Well, Brooksby's got Tommy Paul next, and Ruud will also be kind of lamenting possibly the fact that he could have ended as world number 1, as a result of what's happening this tournament. But the only players that could take that mantle from Carlos Alcaraz now are either Novak Djokovic or Stefanos Tsitsipas by winning the title. Just quickly mentioning Novak Djokovic. Bit of drama today. He lost the second set. A lot of sort of hoo-ha about his leg. He seemed to be in a bit of difficulty. He still had it wrapped. But after losing that second set, he did classic Djokovic and annihilated Enzo Cuoco, I think is how you say his name, to the rest of the match. So, came through very comfortably. Was this just, classic Novak Djokovic when he has a bit of he's up against it, he just pulls it all back together, and the opponent's a bit like, okay, right, that was my one and only moment.
Yeah, we've seen it before, haven't we? We've seen this against multiple sort of players where you almost feel like it's not so much about the being physically hampered, it's almost Djokovic has an arc to his matches. It's almost like this will make it a bit more interesting when they write about it, or when I win the title, they'll look back at that match and think, wow, the way he came through that. And I genuinely, I don't think that he necessarily is faking an injury, but I do think at times he might have played up to it a little bit. It made it seem a little bit more serious than it might have been.
Well, I don't know about that, because
6-2, 6-love after
his interview afterwards with Barbara Shett, it was the tone was pretty, it was pretty down. It was like, to be honest, I'm not sure how my leg is at the moment, and I don't know, again, if that's a bit of kidology in terms of the locker room and making them think, oh, he's a wounded animal, and trying to create some sort of mental edge there. But I certainly looked at it like, yes, he got through that match, but I'm like, even though Nadal's out, Ruud's out, there's opportunities here. I still think we've got a long way to go, and I think he said it's going to have to be obviously a match at a time, and regardless of how well I think you can play, if you've only got one leg, even if you're Novak Djokovic, it's going to be very, very hard to potentially win the Australian Open.
I mean, another player who we had high hopes for, or you certainly did, Joel, was Taylor Fritz.
Yes, Joel.
And,
I'd love to play insert clip.
Can I just say at this point, I did say on the preview show that I wasn't convinced by Casper Ruud, so
does that make it all right?
I've got credit
Fritz
in the bank.
Wrong.
I have got credit in the bank.
Well, Fritz went out in 5 sets to Alexei Popyrin of Australia, which is probably Popyrin's sort of biggest win of his career. Taylor Fritz, incidentally, has a better record, this is on hardcore anyway, against top 10 players than he does players ranked outside the top 100, which I think Popyrin is at the moment, because he's sort of coming back from injury. He has been higher before, but yeah, I mean, that's you can't. It's a great record to have against top tenors, but to win a slam, you have to beat everyone regardless of their ranking. So, Joel, what do you think, Taylor Fritz? This is his second disappointing Grand Slam loss in a row now. What do you think he needs to change up, like for the next slam?
Yeah, it's surprising, because I thought he was in very good form coming in, and yeah, maybe there's a bit of underestimation of players in the earlier rounds, that although he has this sort of champions mentality, and I think he plays very, very well. We see that in the results and in the performances against the top players. Maybe he needs to have a little bit of a different mindset for when he is the target. And against Popyrin, it felt like, at times it was just too much for him. So perhaps he needs to change his mindset when he comes up and he's like, the man with the target on his back, and players are looking for the upset, because Popyrin is a very tricky player to play against. I remember watching him, I think against Cam Norrie in the US Open in an earlier round, maybe last year or the year before, but yeah, that's sort of what I would say. But I mean, regardless of Fritz not doing that well, I mean, the Americans have generally done pretty impressively, particularly in that bottom half.
Yeah, Michael Mmoh also winning through. He's ranked 107 in the world.
Lucky loser, Michael Mmoh as well. He had his flight booked home. He said in his post-match interview he was going to go home on Tuesday. So it just shows, I think, how much can change in the world of tennis.
The prize money pays for his new ticket.
Yeah.
Yeah, he'd be upgrading to what, business
class? Yeah, why not? Treat yourself.
Yeah. Third round of the AO. He beat Sasha Zverev in 4 sets. Again, probably his biggest win of his career. So it does mean at the bottom quarter of the draw, there are no top 20 players, and we basically will have, I think, one of the following men making the Australian Open semi-final. Popyrin, Ben Shelton, JJ Wolf, Michael Mmoh. 3 of those are American, aren't they? Andy Murray, Roberto Bautista Agut, Tommy Paul, or Jenson Brooksby. So 5 Americans out of 8? So it's a high chance that an American is going to make the Australian Open semi-final.
What an opportunity.
Who do you think's going to be last American standing from that quarter?
Last American standing, Paul or Brooksby?
I think Paul will probably. Okay. I also think that Ben Shelton, when you see a draw open up like this, I think that could be an interesting one for one of the younger players. But it's one of those draws you dream about, and it's just a shame that Murray has been made to play so long to get to this stage. Otherwise, you'd think that he has a great chance. Even if you look at the rankings, he's got a great chance, let alone his previous form in Australia. So it could be anyone's.
Yeah, I feel like if Andy hadn't had such long matches
or late finishes.
Well, it messes your schedule up so much, doesn't it? But then RBA is very consistent and very
that was Joel's pick, wasn't it, for this section?
So I wouldn't put it past him, to be quite honest with you. And, you know, the main Spaniard is out, so there's got to be one, isn't there?
I mean, just on that topic of late finishes, you know, we just, you know, have waxed lyrical about the Andy Murray miracle in the early morning. I mean, it did finish past 4 a.m. and not everyone was obviously kind of happy with that. I mean, I was fine with it. I'm not gonna lie, I love the atmosphere, the uniqueness of playing at such a time as a spectator. I know players probably absolutely hate it and it looks a bit ridiculous. I thought it was interesting. Jamie Murray, Andy Murray's brother, came out on Twitter and said, time for tennis to move to only one match at night sessions at Grand Slams. This is the best outcome for all singles players. We can't continue to have players compete into the wee hours of the morning. Rubbish for everyone involved, players, fans, event staff. Where do you stand on 4 a.m. finishes and all of this stuff? Because it does surprise me a little bit that the Australian Open doesn't have a cut-off time.
For me, I think I agree with that. With Jamie Murray, I think it is ridiculous. I think the only people that benefit are people in other countries watching at home
during their working day.
Therefore, you know, TV networks, sponsors, all of that. You know, it helps other time zones. But you know, and I have been at the Australian Open until about 3 a.m. and it was a great atmosphere. But if you were doing that every day, and if you had to get up the next morning and actually play a match or work, it's not great. I don't know, Chris, you may completely disagree, but that's my stance.
No, I completely agree. It's something that I think about a lot when you're watching these matches. It seems so unnecessary to have matches on court at that time when the whole nature of the sport is that your physical conditioning and the minutiae of your preparation, everything is thought about. What you eat, what you drink, how your training is, when you train, but then your sleep schedule is being completely dictated by the tournament and by the sponsors, or having longer hours of the tournament, more airtime, more ad space. And I just think it seems ridiculous that you would have to finish at 4 a.m. and then try and figure out a way to sleep, to then still try and figure out a way to try and play in conditions that you might be playing in again, such as there's a big difference between a night match with a roof closed versus a day match where the extreme heat rule might be in. And it feels like once you get put into those night matches and they run long, you can't put Andy Murray on in the morning session. So you get into these cycles where you only play in one condition and then it could be switched up, and it's just something that players don't need to contend with on top of bringing out the best in their game and putting on a great show. I think it's way beyond the point that something needs to change, but I'm not sure that one match at night sessions or start them earlier and call them the evening session, because it doesn't have to be dead of the night for people to enjoy tennis.
Yeah, that's an interesting point, actually, whether we should be transforming the idea of a night session into an evening session and starting earlier, because I'm not sure about the one match spectacle. I know, was it Roland Garros have brought that in to help, I guess, sell more tickets. And even in the build up, we saw with the practice matches, that sort of one match feel with the the Nick Kyrgios versus Novak Djokovic show. But I don't know, I still would like to see two matches there, but maybe start a bit earlier.
Yeah, I think one is a bit, I don't think that necessarily solves the problem. It is very difficult because the day session often overruns, and I just think maybe start the day session, maybe just start everything earlier. But yeah, there's it's. I think we're going to need a bit of trialing and testing for that, perhaps. It
feels avoidable. It does feel avoidable, I would say. Just the final thing, because we did talk to a tournament director as one of the episodes of the podcast from the Billie Jean King Cup, and that was one where her hands were completely tied, and you weren't able to start earlier. They started an hour earlier than they had done previously, but because there are so many ties, and ties can go very long, they didn't have a choice. But you feel like in the scheduling of a Grand Slam, almost every single day this week, it's gone to kind of a little bit of an obscene hour. Obviously 4 or 5 was very, very extreme. But I'm surprised we don't hear more noise from the singles players, because obviously this doesn't really affect Jamie Murray, unless he wanted to, I don't know, be more productive in the office today. But it did seem like not enough players are actually saying that this isn't good for them. I think it'd be interesting to see if there's a bit more of a movement about that after this sort of finish.
Will the PTPA maybe
yes.
do something about it? Let's have a look at the women's results from today. Top of the list is, of course, Caroline Garcia producing a victory to make her way into the third round. Very close encounter, though. 7-6, 7-5 over Leylah Fernandez. Chris, what did you make of this? I think Caroline Garcia, she was 4-love down in that first set tiebreak, came through to win. But I think a lot of people felt that really it was Fernandez's to lose, and she should have perhaps taken her chances a bit better. Yeah,
I mean, Garcia said that she felt like she described it as a bit of a robbery on her side that first set, because she was down so much and Leylah was winning her service games so easily. That it felt like she wasn't able to find her rhythm. But again, it's one of those things that I always think, if you can win these matches where potentially you weren't serving at your best or you weren't returning at your best, but then in the tiebreak you're able to perform. We've seen some of the great players do it on a regular basis, where you might be playing against a big server. Obviously, I'm not saying Leylah Fernandez is a particularly big server, but they almost do steal these sets, and it's just because of the fact that they are kind of the number 4 seed in this case, or higher. And so I think it's a great sign that against someone as difficult and sort of tricky to play as Leylah, that she's able to tough that one out, because we all know that Leylah's a great fighter and she's not a choker. So she really does fight for every ball, especially at Grand Slam. So again, great positive signs for Garcia. And I can see her going really far in the tournament, because imagine if she's playing well, the damage that she could do.
Well, let's hope so. I mean, Bencic, Sabalenka, they're both through as well today. Straight sets wins. Bencic had a bit of a tough first set against Claire Liu, had to come back from 5-2 down. But one top seed who isn't making it into the third round is Ons Jabeur, second seed. She lost to Marketa Vondrousova. I mean, we weren't really glorifying Ons Jabeur's chances, I reckon, in our preview episode, and I guess this is why. And Vondrousova, former Grand Slam finalist a couple of years back at the French Open, on her day, she has the potential to knock out the big names. Joel, what did you make of this match and Jabeur's performance?
Yeah, I mean, it was sort of similar story to, I think, round one. I think in round one she hit like 50 odd unforced errors, and again in this match I think she hit around about 50 unforced errors. She was just very, very loose and erratic. I think there was talk also of a knee injury hindering her movement, and I think when you come up against someone of Vondrousova's quality, yes, she is unseeded, but we've got to remember this is a player who has been off the tour for an extended periods of time. She's been a Grand Slam finalist, as you said, at the French Open. So a very, very tricky customer. And, she came back onto the tour at the end of last season. Me and Chris saw her at the Billie Jean King Cup defeat Danielle Collins. I mean, on her day, she is an absolute handful for anyone. And it's actually nice, I think, to see her back and claim these big victories, because I think she's become a little bit forgotten about the fact that she is a former Grand Slam finalist. And Ons Jabeur, she, although was able to kind of wrestle that second set, Vondrousova just sort of steamrolled in the final set. And I'll be unfortunate for Jabeur, but I think this is a great opportunity for Vondrousova to kind of almost, I think, re-announce herself, in Grand Slams. And it's great to see, given, as I said, the injury layoffs that she has had ever since I feel she reached that French Open final those years ago.
Yeah, exactly. So it's nice to see her kind of perhaps coming through in a slam draw again. The other seeds that went out, Kudermetova, who we had all put in our quarterfinals, she's gone. Annette Kontaveit's out. Ludmila Samsonova, she went out to Donna Vekic for the loss of 3 games.
Wow.
I put Samsonova to win Wimbledon. She better up her game for that. But we did have a win for Linda Fruhvirtova. Hurrah. And also Karolina Pliskova is through. So I have to say, before we go to the second half, one I don't know, entity that perhaps won't be so happy with how results have gone so far this tournament is Netflix and their production company, because a lot of people saying on Twitter that most of the players featured in the Breakpoint documentary on Netflix either didn't play the Australian Open due to injury or are already out in the first or second round. So the likes of Tomljanovic, Badosa, Kyrgios, Berrettini, Ruud and Fritz, they have all gone. We do still have FAA and TFO, however. So,
does this mean the Netflix Breakpoint curse is a thing?
How can it not be?
Well, it seems to be so, which is not great for like new fans who maybe want to follow these players and they're like, where are they? I thought they were that good. They're supposed to be like getting to finals and perhaps not ideal for kind of creating a new cohort of followers. But then this is the reality. It is very up and down. It's not like other sports.
Has it added to the pressure, do you think, Kim?
Well,
the
maybe.
increased
They've got
attention.
new following. Yeah, their social medias might be going mad.
It is interesting because unlike Formula One, where those drivers are in qualifying, you see them in practice, and they're always going to be in the main event, in the main race on the Sunday. In tennis, it's a completely different idea. It's, particularly in Grand Slams, these players, it's like if they go out in round one, they can be in hibernation for 2 weeks off the tour. So, yeah, it's interesting how maybe there is a little bit of added pressure there.
Yeah. Well, let's take a quick break now, but do join us in the second half where we'll be taking a look at all the action from day 3 of the Australian Open. So do not go anywhere. Welcome back to the Australian Open Round 2 catch-up, sponsored by downloadtennis.com. And let's look back at the day 3 events. So cast your minds back. It seems such a long time ago. Do you want to
cast your mind back, Kim? I think
this
is
could be
the
tricky
question.
Yeah.
Well, do I? Yeah, I woke up and I saw that Rafa had lost in straight sets to Mackenzie McDonald, which is not a normal result. And I don't want to sort of give excuses, but when I saw that scoreline, I thought, hang on a minute, he must be injured, because you wouldn't normally expect him to go out in straights to, or however good Mackenzie McDonald is.
Not great.
That's not a typical Nadal scoreline. This is his earliest defeat at the AO since 2016. And yeah, a hip injury this time round. He's had a scan. I think he's out for about 6 to 8 weeks. And just never looked comfortable on court, really, even before the hip sort of seemed to be an issue. So yeah, very, very sad scenes for Rafa fans.
Do you think that's the last we've seen of him in Melbourne? Because he did wave to all sides of the stadium, and he didn't want to obviously retire. Do you think that's it?
I hope not. I mean, Rafa loves playing tennis. He loves fighting and playing, and he will do that, I think, until it's sort of really unfeasible for him not to. So whether that decision is made before the start of next year, who knows? But I'd obviously love to see him back down under in Australia competing again. And we've seen him come back so many times before from similar situations. So I'm not going to write him off yet. No way.
It's a tricky one, isn't it, though, in terms of whether he will be there again, because I have this theory, and obviously when you choose to have a baby...
Is this Sasha Zverev's theory? Because I think he came out the other day and he thinks Nadal is retiring after the French Open.
It's the child's fault, do you think? Is that what you're saying?
We've seen like Murray and Djokovic, and they all kind of have kids relatively young. And I think potentially...
And Federer.
Yeah, and Federer, potentially he postponed it so that he could make sure that he wouldn't have to kind of take necessarily his child on tour with him like forever in that sort of way. I feel like it's wanting to settle down at some point. So that's the theory. I think the French Open retirement theory isn't particularly unlikely. I do think that Sasha, his comments don't particularly help, because if he has had a conversation with Rafa, which I'm sure he probably hasn't, speculate about retirement isn't really good practice on the tour, is it? No one's going to be pleased that you brought that one up in a press conference.
It's not a way to adhere yourself to fans, is it?
No.
No, I mean, well, retirement Andy Murray videos of prophecies, and let's not go there because we might eat our words.
We should never do predictions.
Might eat his words. But let's look at more positive news from day 3. Cameron Norrie went through. Also, we forgot to say Dan Evans went through. So we do have 3 British men in the 3rd round, which is fantastic. Tsitsipas is through, Medvedev, Yannick Sinner, Francis Tiafoe. So no surprises there. And FAA also through. Had to go 5 though. So again, not doing it with ease at the moment is Felix, but still there, and that's the main thing. And Medvedev through comfortably. So yeah, we've obviously got Mackenzie McDonald through as a result of that win over Rafa. I was just a bit annoyed that Brandon Nakashima hadn't taken out Mackenzie McDonald in the first round, and that he couldn't have been the sort of beneficiary of Rafa.
Well, I mean, it has opened up for Yoshihito Nishioka, who hasn't dropped a set yet. Who I think is
2
facing
matches.
Yeah, well, exactly. Faces Mackenzie McDonald tomorrow. I mean, just guys, just on Nadal's defeat, who do you think this benefits the most in terms of the draw? Does it benefit Djokovic, or do you think it benefits someone else like Daniel Medvedev or a Stefanos Tsitsipas, who again has been looking very, very comfortable, I think, in the early rounds so far?
Yeah, for me, I think it's looking like a Tsitsipas, Tsitsipas or Medvedev final versus Djokovic at the moment as things stand. And I think Tsitsipas maybe over Medvedev actually, which is what I've predicted. So go me.
I mean, you're backing yourself again now. I think I'm
bold words.
I don't back anything I predict. I think this is a great chance for someone like Tiafoe to, after he obviously had that breakthrough right at the very end of last season, and he finds himself as the 16th seed. He's come through quite nicely in the last round and very vibrantly in his outfit. But I think this is a great opportunity for him to back up his semi-final with a quarter-final and then see if he is able to be competing with some of these top 10 players and make that leap. So I think that will be particularly interesting to see.
I do think Tiafoe has the most to gain, I think, from the Nadal defeat, given where he is in the draw. And I just think the freedom and the fun that he's playing with in his game at the moment.
He's happy to be out there, isn't he?
Yeah, he just.
Do you mean the fun shirt, Joel, or the
fun shirt? But he's a fun guy as well. I think he's one of those players that, when he enjoys himself and he enjoys into his tennis on the court, that's when his performances are at his best. And I don't think we should be taking him lightly. I think he's got Karen Khachanov next, and I think they're both, to me, they like to entertain, their crowd pleasers on the court, and it could be quite an interesting battle. But for Tiafoe, I think he's got quite a lot to gain potentially from this Nadal defeat and carry on that momentum that he showed at the US Open last year.
Yeah, and looking back at one of the other main sort of matches from day 3, it was that Coco Gauff versus Emma Raducanu match, which again I was having a bit of sort of brunch to this. And
Chris, are you annoyed this didn't go 3 sets at the very least?
I mean, I said it was going to be straight sets Raducanu, and it really should have been. I was watching quite a lot of this. I'm sorry to my employer for that, but I was pretty much focused on this at the time, at the start of my working day. But the number of unforced errors in this match was unbelievable, and the number of missed opportunities, I just found it very frustrating, because you get the glimmers of what they can do, but at the same time, it was the opposite of clean tennis. And yes, the future of tennis does look good, but I mean, 17 winners for Raducanu and 42 unforced errors, 13 winners for Gauff and 41 unforced errors. I mean, it's few and far between, these quality points, and
it
wasn't pretty that they're defending well. I think Raducanu had set points, she had opportunity, she had break points, and I think she's just not very kind of as well.
She's still a bit tentative, I think, in those moments.
She doesn't take it on in the way that she did, obviously, in that US Open run.
Yeah, as I said, when she was playing kind of carefree and maybe with no expectation and no pressure, like that US Open run when everyone is sort of getting used to who exactly is this person who's just jumped onto the scene. Maybe, yeah, that tentativeness has come in a bit more now that she is, more established. But Coco Gauff, I still think is, she's a very tough customer, and she did play very, very well.
Her defense, Joel, was something else. I don't think I've seen anyone return that well. It was almost Djokovic-like, some of the positions she was getting herself into, and some of the balls she was getting back in. I understand much more Raducanu's error count, because Coco Gauff's defence was honestly unbelievable. I mean, shots that would be winners against other players, Coco was getting multiple of them back in a point. But the big question I have for both of you is Coco Gauff's forehand. Is that the reason that she won't win a slam?
Ooh, that's a bold statement, Chris, isn't it?
It just can't.
I feel like you can't win Grand Slams. You can't win Grand Slams on defense alone, and when you're trying to be aggressive. And I think sometimes, with Coco Gauff, that forehand does go missing, and it's obviously such a crucial shot that it does beg the question. But I mean, the fact that she's got into the top 10 with it is still...
Well, she's got a great serve and a great backhand. It's almost like Berrettini in the sense that his backhand is his big weakness, and he's obviously been a top 10 player with a great serve as well. So for me, I just think there's so much potential there, and I just think that she's at the age where she still is able to make some technical changes. And I was kind of hoping to see a bit more of that in the off-season. But again, she got the win, so maybe I've been too harsh, and as you say, she has got to a final, but it's such a glaring area of improvement for someone who has such a fantastic game already.
And I mean, just looking at other results, we had Iga Swiatek go through, Jessie Pegula through. Chris, we were thinking about potential Iga versus Bianca third round, but that is not happening because Bianca Andreescu lost to Christina Buxer of Spain.
What was going on there?
What did you make of that? She seemed so promising in her first round.
I know.
Bianca did.
It was
Chris put the mockers on it.
I definitely I do take full responsibility for that loss, Bianca. But she got so close again, so close in that tie break to closing it out. And I saw some of the reaction from some of tennis Twitter that said that when Bianca's on, she's very, very on, and she's got the game, but then she does just go off the boil, and it's almost unexplainable. So that is a big shame. But based on the performance in that round, I'm not sure she'd be getting past Iga, because Iga really did play a lot better. I didn't catch too much of that, but from what I did see, absolutely outclassed her opponent.
She cut the error count down. Her forehand, yes, there were times when it was still looking a little bit iffy, but yeah, generally a better performance. But I would also say that Camila Osorio on a hard court, not as, I think, competitive as Yul Niemeyer gave her in terms of a test in that opening encounter.
Yeah, I mean, one of the moments of my day, of everyone's day, of many people's day, was the Danielle Collins victory earlier than should be victory moment against Karolina Muchova. I mean, this was a great match. It was 3 sets, last set tiebreak. Clearly, Danielle Collins, I don't think had ever played a last set tiebreak. She didn't realise it was first to 10 points, so she celebrated when she'd got to 7. But it was all quite entertaining in the end, and provided some,
I thought the Grand Slams had sorted this out. We had got some consistency in relation to the final set and what happens, but maybe Danielle Collins didn't get the memo.
Maybe so. But yeah, it's a good job she went on to actually win, because
I know. That would have been awkward.
That would have been really embarrassing and awkward.
The lesson here is, no matter who you're playing, do not celebrate too much, because it might end up on Twitter. It might end up making the rounds. Be sure until you've celebrate after you've shaken hands. That's the one.
My quarterfinal prediction for Muchova is no more as a result. But one seed that did go out, Petra Kvitova, she's gone. She lost to Kalinina. But Sakkari's through, as we said earlier. Yeah, not an awful... They were the main things, I say, from day 3. I think, the second round has just been, I think, kind of overshadowed by this Andy Murray match, which was just one for the ages. It's absolutely fantastic. So that's round 2 wrapped up. We've got round 3 to look forward to, which will be kicking off in the not too distant future. Let's look at day 5 and who's out on court. Couple of really eye-catching affairs, I think, for me. Joel, pick out your favourites for us. Where are you going to be tuning into tomorrow?
Well, I think it's the night session on Rod Laver. A surprise. Madison Keys, Victoria Azarenka, both players, I think, playing quite well in this tournament. Although we didn't really, I feel, have that many upsets in kind of round 2 in the ladies competition. I really think this could be a really entertaining match to kick us off. Maybe tomorrow night. So that's sort of where my eyes are at. And then, you've got Korda Medvedev. I'm still worried about men's matches following women's matches on night sessions, given what's just happened to the Andy Murray match against Kokkinakis. But again, that should be quite a feast, I think, for the spectators on Rod Laver.
Chris, where are you going? Who have you got your eyes on?
I think I might be
now
on...
that Bianca's not going to be in action.
Yes, I might be
or
on...
Sloane.
Or Sloane, yes. I thought we could get through the podcast without mentioning that Sloane did go out on day 3 in her round 1 match.
Yes.
But maybe I'll be on John Cain Arena watching a bit of Storm Hunter and Elise Mertens in the doubles.
Oh, okay.
Against Kudermetova and Samsonova. But if it's singles you're asking about, Kim, I think Pegula versus Kostyuk could be particularly interesting because Marta's shown some very good form at the start of this year. So I think that might be trickier than it looks on paper.
Is Krejcikova just going to go through this competition just not being spoken about? I think we'll know in terms of, she's first on against Kalinina, who obviously was the
I hadn't even
the
spotted
conqueror.
her name though. I'd completely overlooked it. Yeah, that could be...
exactly. We're all
Story of
overlooking
her life. Story of her tennis life, really. But overlook her to your peril. That's what I say. Also, Yannick Sinner kind of quietly going through the draw as well. But yes, I think some interesting matchups. Rebecca Collins, I think, could be quite interesting as well. And I'm hoping Cam Norrie will make it through to the 4th round. He was having some troubles against Constant Lestienne in the second round at times and avoided going 2-1 down, which was good.
Kim, I'm not gonna lie, I was worried whether we were gonna have a new person throw their beret into the ring for French male number 1.
Yeah, I did sort of think that as well. I thought, it's going to be Lestienne, isn't it? He's heard our chats and he wants a part of it.
I mean, the Brits have done quite well against the French this week because obviously Shardy was defeated by Dan Evans today as well.
And there was a bit of hoo-ha in that match about Alette, I think.
Shardy just lost it, didn't he?
Yeah, and he wanted a new umpire or what have you. So, yes, lots going on. And, Benjamin Bonzi beating PCB.
The live ranking French number 1. So that's your update from...
We should just make another podcast devoted to... Just specifically the French men's number 1 ranking.
It's just so much change. It's really...
I mean,
really
there's so many players, so many contenders.
And great names to say.
Could be a new quiz segment. Guess who it is on every week of the podcast.
Could it be Arthur Rinderknech or Ugo Humbert? I just don't know.
It could be. It really could be.
It's anyone's game, isn't it, really? How exciting. But yes, we'll be back to discuss the 3rd round over the weekend. So we do hope you can all join us then.
Yes, listeners, I hope you have enjoyed our latest episode of the Tennis Weekly podcast, our round 2 catch-up of the Australian Open. Remember to subscribe to us to stay up to date on all the action to come from Melbourne.
We are on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and all major podcasting platforms out there. And if you like what you're hearing, then make sure to leave us a rating and a review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify.
You can also follow us on social media or email the show. We're on Facebook, Instagram and Twitter at Tennis Weekly Pod. You can email us on tennisweeklypod@gmail.com or check out our website, www.tennisweekly.co.uk.
And we will be back over the weekend for our round 3 round by round catch up. So I hope you can join us for that. But in the meantime, it's goodbye from Kim.
Goodbye.
It's goodbye from Chris.
Goodbye.
And it's goodbye from me. We'll see you again soon.